Thank you very much. My name's Marsha, and I run The Secret Kitchen, which is a social eating enterprise in Nottingham. I'm here today, obviously, to talk about family, but I'm also here to talk about food poverty and social eating. During the summer, I read a newspaper article, really changed my life, and it's the reason why I'm stood here today. I was horrified to learn that in our country, right now, 2 out of 10 children regularly go hungry. Now, in an environment of scarcity and famine, this would be a tragedy, but in an environment of abundance and wealth, it's insanity. I've only got one slide to show you, and if you could bring it on now. I'll hit you with some more facts, just in case you're unsure as to the seriousness of the problem. Okay, we're throwing an awful lot of food away, both domestically and through retail. It ends up around about a third of our food gets chucked away. Some of it gets turned into pet food, a lot of it gets turned into compost, and a lot of it just gets chucked away. It's a huge burden upon the NHS to do with malnutrition. And again, these figures aren't just to do with children, which is what I'm going to be talking about, but actually the cascade of effects that happen when people aren't eating well. Something like £13 billion each and every year. Now this is insane. And according to research recently that happened within the last couple of years, just to bring it home to Nottingham, around 30 to 40% of children are living in poverty. 10 minutes walk from here, there are children that are hungry right now. So as you can imagine, as a mum and as a person that works with food and social eating, I was really, really bothered by this. Bothered to the point I thought I need to do something about it. Now, I want to talk initially about food poverty and what it means to me, and maybe how it's been conceptualised so far, and some of the key components that I think are missing in this debate. And then I'm going to talk about the responses to food poverty, so we'll talk about food banks, and talk about what I do, which is organising social eating events. And then I'm going to talk about what I'm going to be doing next year, which is a model called Family Cafes. Okay, we tend to think of food poverty as an economic issue, and as the chap before me explained, statistics can do all sorts of things and they can show all sorts of things. But one thing that they're not showing in terms of food poverty dialogue at the moment is it's not just an economic issue. There's plenty of food around, and we can say, yes, it's because it's not shared, there is unequal social structures. But actually, to me, it's more to do with the impoverishment of food. Food is something in families that holds us together. It's like a glue, and this glue is being diluted, and it's becoming less sticky, and its importance is becoming diluted. We're eating in increasingly fragmented units. We're eating in increasingly atomised manners. We're increasingly eating in wasteful and unnourishing ways. This is having a tremendous impact upon all of us. Now, any of you that work in education or have children know that if they're hungry, they don't sit still, they don't work properly, they're not able to think clearly. So again, there's been lots of TED Talks about education and all sorts of stuff. Actually, food is key. It's an absolute fundamental. None of us would disagree with that. But what's actually happening contemporarily around food is that its stickiness is being lost. Children are eating, walking down the street. We see it all the time with a hand in a brown paper bag, shoveling something in. Sitting in the back of cars, eating something that's come through a drive-through. Or they're sitting in front of the telly, just shoveling something in. In order for our bodies to process food properly, we need to chop food, we need to smell it, we need to stir it, we need to interact with it. It gets our enzymes going, it prepares our bodies to eat so that we can derive the maximum amount of nutrition from that type of food. Now imagine if you're eating very, very low quality food, which is very stimulating to the mouth. It's got lots of sugar and salt and fat in it, but it's very, very little nutrition. Realistically, you might as well be chewing on a car tyre for the amount of nourishment that you're able to get from that foodstuff. The intrinsic value of food as a nourishing source is being lost through this type of food. But it's not just fast food, it's actually the way that we're eating generally in terms of convenience. It has a big impact upon the way our bodies are able to derive the nourishment from it and the real goodness that we get from food. Again, I see children that can't sit and eat at a table. They don't know how to use a knife and fork. They don't know how to say please and thank you. They don't see their parents eating. They don't see food as something which is holding them together, which is nourishing them, which is sustaining them. So it's the whole spiritual, social, emotional aspect of food which is being currently lost for lots of white, working class British people, of which I would consider myself part of that group. It's not just about economics. If we just focus on economics, we're missing a huge part of the picture. It's actually to do with the nourishing value that food can bring and the glue that holds us together around food. Now, given this grim picture, things are happening. There are responses to this problem. And one of those is food banks. Now, there's been about 3 food banks that have been got together this year in Nottingham. Now, I have a bit of an ambivalent relationship with food banks. I'm a pragmatist and I can see, okay, it's great. There are some people that are really hungry and they don't have enough money for food. Food prices have risen, benefits are frozen. We have a lot of people that are vulnerable, asylum seekers, for example, that don't get access to their benefit system, that certainly benefit from being given food. However, the clues in the word bank, first of all, it raised the suspicions on my part about dependency, about sustainability. You know, the clues there sort of still haven't quite, maybe most people have got that problematisation of the banks down onto this food bank level. I don't think, in all honesty, it's sustainable for us to keep donating and other people taking. We need exchange and we need fair exchange, and that doesn't have to be in terms of money, as I'm going to go and show. But the issue around food banks is that it's my responsibility as a mum to feed my daughter. It doesn't have to come down to money. There are other ways around it, which again I'm going to talk about soon. But I think, what example does it set to children that it's someone else's job and responsibility to feed them? This isn't a productive model. This isn't holding us together around family and food. This can encourage dependency. And for some people, taking that money, giving them that more money per week is a disaster for them and their children. Okay, we need better modelling. So food banks, it's great. I'm a pragmatist. I know they're here and they have their benefits, but they're not sustainable. So what is sustainable? About a year ago, I was sick of having to walk into town and pay £4 for a cup of coffee. I've been to lots of meetings around food, been to lots of volunteering, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to start up a cafe. I took out a personal loan and I went to see my business advisor, and I said, okay, I want to set up a community cafe. I want to set up a social eating space. What I want to do is I want to get some food, I want to cook it, the meal that I want to make, so there won't be a menu, it'll just be what I fancy making that day. Some of it will be donated, some of it will be foraged, a lot of it will be seasonal, organic, and basically I'm going to make a meal, and then people are going to come, and they're going to eat it, and if they don't like it, it's tough, and when it's gone, it's gone. Yes, you can picture this thing, can't you? Didn't get it. So we talked about the bottom line, we talked about business rates, and we talked about breakfast paninis and lattes, and I walked out there and thought, yep, I'm not doing that. I'm still in business a year later, doing exactly what I wanted to do. I think there's a huge myth around choice. There's a huge myth around eating, that people need to have loads of choice. People just want to eat something nice. And in terms of my own cafe, having this non-menu, cooking what I fancy making, means that my food has integrity. Even it might start as something cheap like a bag of lentils, but by the time I finish with it, it's full of nourishment, it's got integrity. I can tell you what's in it, I can tell you how I've cooked it, I can tell you the recipe if you want, or you can maybe come and give me a hand doing the washing up. There's all this stuff that happens around food. Food is a family glue. So what I began to realise from running the cafe was that I was really onto something, and it was to do with social eating. Getting people together around food is really democratising. Everybody shares the same dish, everybody gets the same portion. You already have a common currency in terms of something to talk about that you can share. Anybody can come. You know, how have we lost this? It's like, is this genius idea that I've come up with? No, it isn't. It's just through experience and thinking in terms of like economic sort of value for my own business. It makes more sense to make one big pot and everybody eats it. The price goes down, but the value of it goes up. It's not rocket science, but for some reason, we just seem to have lost it within the last 10 years in this country. Again, this cooking and eating culture. And the thing about food banks is that you can give people a parcel of food, but how do you know they're going to cook it? Surely there's a big bit of the portion here that's missing, that throwing cans of baked beans at the problem isn't going to sort it out. We need to get together and eat. So what I started to do through the cafe was run social eating evenings, where again, I made a big pot of food, and basically we sat and shared it, and it was really powerful. I think there's all sorts of stuff that happens when people get together around food to do with this food as a family glue. Sitting at a table, sharing food, children watching their parents eat, exchange that isn't just about money, conversation, please and thank you, could you pass me this? Call it soft social working. All the stuff that happens around food, which is it just happens. It doesn't have to be this top-down agenda where we're trying to ram home this message about 5 a day or about manners or about all these different things. Just let people get on with it. Just give them some food and let them get on with it. And this is particularly true for children. So with this in mind, I really started to think a little bit more deeply about how I could apply the model that I was using to really help children and to help families. Again, I was doing cooking lessons, and I realised it's all very well and good, but the sort of cooking lesson I do is not weighing, measuring. It's sort of more intuitive cooking. What have you got in the cupboard? What could you make out of this? But still, those people go, how do you know that they're actually doing it? Giving them parcels of food, how do you know they're actually using it, and how are they using it best? It makes far more sense to continue to socially eat and resurrect this phenomenon in this country. And this is why it's not just about an economic issue. Anybody can get together and do this, okay? I'm going to bring out my secret weapon now, which is my sort of way of tackling. Oh, God, hold on.
I'll hold it for you.
Okay. All right, I'll put that down. Here you see my secret weapon. Ladies and gentlemen, the mega pan. Yes, it's a big ass pan. And what I'm going to be doing is filling it with food, and then you can come and eat it. I've come up with a concept called family cafes, which I'm going to be starting next year, tackling the things about food waste, about social eating, and about food poverty, but fundamentally holding integrity around food and being mindful of nourishment and the real need that people have, not just the economically deprived, but that everybody has, to feel nourished by the food that they're eating. So I approached local supermarkets, and again, this is about developing personal relationships, and said, do you know what? I want to set up a tea time club next year, probably run from 2 to 4, 5 evenings a week, where people can come and they can access a nutritious, healthy meal, but more importantly, they can sit and eat together. So I introduced this concept to some local supermarkets, and they said, thank you. The local managers did. We hate throwing this food away. We feel awful about throwing this food away every single day. We're chucking away food that's perfectly eatable. Some of it isn't even approaching its sell-by date, but we've got so much coming in, we've got to chuck it out. We are all over this idea. Talking to people at schools, health visitors, GPs, teachers, everyone's all over this concept. It makes complete sense. Get some food for free, put it in the mega pan. Voila, let's sit and eat together. It's called family cafe models. It's not something complicated. And again, the price is determined by you. What do you want to donate? What do you think the meal is worth? There's no price list. There's no menu. You just turn up and eat together. Some people will have more money. They'll give more. Some people don't have anything. And if you don't have any money, welcome to chopping onions in my kitchen. There will be unaccompanied minors that will turn up. And again, this will be a big issue for us. Again, they can have free food, but they'll be expected to get the plates in, wipe the tables down, take the bin bags out. It's about exchange. It's not about necessarily an economic issue. It's about all chipping in together. We have this awful circling the drain energy around austerity, scarcity. It's a fear-based mindset. Just get a pan, flip it on its head, put some food in it, and let's eat together. If any of you want to get involved in social eating, get in contact with me. I'll lend you the recipes. I'll show you the stuff about public liability. I'll give you a blueprint for how you get these things up and running. Get one up and running in your area. It doesn't have to be food that's free. It could be food that you've all chipped in. This is the way forward, I see, which is so powerful. It's so simple, and it's been right there in front of us. But yet, for some of us, it's been completely lost. Loads of us want to regain our social eating culture. And I think if we had a social eating culture resurrected in Nottingham, as I'm going to start doing in my local area and beyond, this is immensely powerful. It really fulfills this deep human need that we have to eat together and to feel nourished and looked after. And what a great example to set our children, to see us collaborating over food. So nothing is wasted. Everything is looked after. Again, stewardship of the planet. It's much cheaper to rent one hall and to do one big pot of food than it is for us all to go into our own houses and do it separately. So again, on all these different levels, it makes sense. It answers all of these 3 statistical issues around waste, around health, and around poverty. So it's a simple model, and if any of you want to get involved, I'll expect to see some of you at least down at my family cafe soon. So please, if you're interested, please get behind family cafes. And in a moment now, on this fair note, we're going to be sharing some lunch. Thank you very much.